guy kept cutting me in line at the coffee shop, so I made his morning routine miserable. There's this coffee shop I go to every morning before work. It's a small place, usually has a line of 5 to 6 people. There's this one guy who would show up, see the line, and then pretend to just remember he needed to ask the barista a question. He'd walk up to the counter, ask something stupid, like what the size of a medium is, and then conveniently just order while he was already up there. He did this at least 4 times that I witnessed. Nobody ever called him out because, confrontation before coffee isn't worth it. So I started playing the same game. Whenever I'd see him walk in and start heading toward the counter with his I have a question routine, I'd quickly step out of line, beat him to it, and then ask the most annoying, time-consuming questions possible. Like, what is the difference between a latte and a cappuccino? Do you have oat milk? What about soy milk? What about almond milk? Which one froths better? Can you explain your whole pastry selection? And then I'd say, oh, actually, let me get back in line and think about it, and go back to my spot. He'd be stuck standing there looking like an idiot. After about a week of this, he started just waiting in line like a normal person. Problem solved. Haven't seen him try to cut since. I would say yes and no. You kind of are the asshole, not to him, but to everybody else in line, because you're now taking up their line and you're also cutting. Granted, you're not ordering a coffee, but you're still kind of wasting other people's time. But I guess since it didn't really take a long time for him to learn the lesson and he just started waiting in line like an actual human, I would say no, you're basically not the asshole. But good on you for making him actually learn his lesson. Boss always found an error with my monthly reports and cover letters, so I used her old ones and watched her rip them apart. This takes place 19 years ago when I worked for State Street Bank for one of the worst human beings ever, Paula. Real places and real names, so I don't care. If you live in Boston and are looking to work at this place, just skip it. It's a horrible place to work. Anyways, on to the story. I had just started working for Paula. The team was a mini project team tackling complex financial operation problems with high SVP visibility. That is how it was sold to me. In reality, it was a mushroom farm, with Paula keeping you in the dark and feeding you shit. All I did was compile reports and gather data from people who were terrified of my team. Needless to say, I was bait and switched and was looking to get out of there fast. She had a habit of always criticizing your work to hell with the stupidest things. One of the reports I was responsible for was a weekly update on certain oil warrants out of Nigeria. To those that do not know what a warrant is, it is an agreement to buy a commodity at a specific price regardless of the current value. The reason being, there was an option to buy $30 per barrel when prices peaked at $90 per barrel. We had no idea if the holder knew about this or not, but had to monitor and report because the liability and loss would have been massive. Anywho, week after week after week after week, Paula would review, rip me a new asshole over format, verbiage, and every stupid thing not related to the actual numbers being right. Total ticky-tacky stuff. One day, I was going through the network files and stumbled across an old folder for a similar project. It was Paula's handiwork before they gave her a team to manage, so I decided to use her format for everything, even changing the report structure to look just like hers and using her cover letter language. I brought it to her office to review and sign off, and she absolutely lost her shit. She asked what happened to the old format. I told her she didn't seem to like what I had been doing, so I decided to change it around. She said it's worse than it was before, probably the worst I submitted to her. She went on for what seemed like forever. I just looked at her and didn't interrupt with a blank look. Her last question to me was, what was I thinking when I made these changes? I told her I used the formatting and language she used when she was doing similar reports years back, that I found an old folder online and used her past work verbatim, just changed the numbers and relevant information. I gave her printouts of her reports and letters to compare. She just looked at me with this dumbstruck look on her face. I asked if this was bad, should I go back to my format then? She just signed off on the reports and said to send them as is. I just wanted to confirm that they were fine to send because less than a minute ago, she said they were basically unreadable. She said they were fine to send as is and didn't have time to redo them, so I sent them out. I was smart enough to find and save all of her old work. I noticed that she went through and deleted the old folders that I had found, just as I expected her to. This cat and mouse game went on for the remainder of my time there. I would use her templates / past work and wait for her to tear them apart. After a few more times, she eventually figured out I grabbed all of them. She asked and I told her I created SOPs using all of her past work and had saved it locally. Seemed like the logical thing to do. I was able to quit a few months later. Fuck you, Paula. Now, this is an amazing story. I would say this is the best corporate fuck you that you can possibly give to your manager if you do not like them and you're trying to leave. So, in my personal opinion, I do not think you're the asshole. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments. My coworker kept stealing my pens, so I swapped them out. I used to leave a few pens on my desk, but they seemed to vanish. At first, I thought maybe I was just being careless, but then I noticed one of my coworkers always had the exact same pens I bought. Instead of calling him out, I decided to make things a little interesting. I bought a pack of disappearing ink pens and left them in the usual spot. Sure enough, he borrowed one right before a meeting and started taking notes. About halfway through, his notes began fading until the page looked blank. He stared at it in total confusion while everyone kept writing. I had to keep a straight face, but inside I was dying of laughter. Needless to say, he never touched my pens again after that little incident, and my desk supplies have been safe ever since. This is a nice, quick, and easy one, and it's hilarious. I think I'd actually just laugh out loud in a meeting if I saw that happening, or if I did that to somebody. That's amazing. You're not the asshole. That dude's an asshole. Roommate keeps drinking my OJ, so I taught them a lesson. This is not a complicated story. My old roommate used to eat my food and drinks. Despite having several conversations about boundaries and not being a dick, nothing changed. So I faked being sick over the weekend when he was home and drank directly out of the OJ container. I licked the edge of the pickle jar before putting the top back on when some pickle juice ran over. I stuck my bare finger in the peanut butter. I used my finger to put cream cheese on a bagel. I made sure he noticed all of this. On Sunday, he broke and asked me if I always handled food like that. I told him I thought it was dumb to dirty utensils when I'm the only one eating my food. Not only did that end my food being stolen, but he suggested we each have our own drawers and shelves in the fridge to prevent confusion. This is a nice, short, and sweet story. No, you're not the asshole. That's honestly amazing. I would do the same thing. If you have several conversations with somebody and you live with them about not eating your food that you buy with your money and your groceries and your drinks, and they keep doing it several times after being talked to several times, then they get what's coming to them. That's ridiculous. Be an adult. If somebody tells you, please don't eat my food, and you eat their food, you are the asshole. So, no, you are not the asshole for doing this. They deserved it. Neighbor kept treating my driveway like free parking, so I taught him a $300 lesson. Okay, so this is a bit long, but I need to get it off my chest. I live in a small cul-de-sac, nothing fancy, just your average neighborhood. My driveway fits 2 cars, mine plus my husband's. Perfectly fine. For the most part, everyone here minds their own business, except for my neighbor. Let's call him Jack. For whatever reason, he thinks my driveway is like extra parking for his family / friends. First time it happened, I thought it was a mistake. His brother's car was in there. He said it'd just be a sec. A week later, it was some friend of his dropping something off. I didn't love it, but I figured whatever, nothing worth making awkward. But it kept happening. I'd come home from work, I'm a nurse, so some days I'm wiped out, and there'd be a random car blocking me. One night, I literally had to park halfway down the street and carry 5 bags of groceries because his buddy's truck was in my spot. Every time I said something, he'd do that half smile and go, "Oh yeah, sorry, they'll be gone soon," like I'm the one being difficult. The final straw. I get home late Friday night after a 12-hour shift, still in scrubs, starving, with takeout that's already getting cold in the passenger seat. And boom, giant white SUV just parked dead center in my driveway, not even off to the side, like full on blocking me from even pulling in. I knock, no answer. I call Jack. He finally picks up, and his super casual goes, "Oh yeah, that's my in-laws. They'll only be there for a couple hours. Just park on the street. It's not a big deal." That was it for me. I called a tow truck, and yes, I checked before. Where I live, if someone blocks your private driveway, you're allowed to tow immediately. Tow guy showed up 20 minutes later. SUV was gone before I even finished half my fries. About an hour later, furious pounding on my door, Jack's beet red. His in laws are yelling in the background, and he's going off about how I don't have to take it that far. I just said, "You told me it wasn't a big deal, so I treated it like it wasn't a big deal," and then closed the door. They had to pay almost $300 to get their car back, and funny enough, ever since then, my driveway has stayed crystal clear, not even just for a sec. Yeah, you're justified. Fuck that dude. Absolute asshole. First time, completely fine. Whatever. I've had people do it to my house before. It's just whatever. You just have a small conversation saying, hey, it's fine. Just, don't do it again. But several times, and you constantly downplay it after being told that it's not okay. Fuck you. You're the asshole, and you deserved the $300 ticket. Sucks to suck, buddy. Am I the asshole for telling my wife my mother is correct and she needed to be a parent today and she fucked it up? I am waiting at the airport and I need to know if I fucked up or not. This week, my daughter, who is in middle school, lost a classmate. My daughter has not taken it well, and overall, this is her first experience of someone she knows dying. The whole class was excused today, and the funeral is happening right now. I unfortunately could not be there. I tried, but my PTO was denied and cannot lose this job. I flew out Wednesday night, and I'm coming back now. Our daughter is a mess. She was friends with the girl that passed away. The plan was for my wife, who is currently unemployed, to take her to the funeral/mass and just be there for her. My wife is more spiritual than the average person and hates all things with the dead, funerals, viewings, and so on. This one is only a mass funeral, no viewing. She believes in ghosts and will avoid funerals like the plague. We discussed it on Wednesday, and she said she would take our kid and then go to the gravesite. I got a call from my daughter sobbing that she wasn't going to the funeral. My wife was refusing to take her. When I got her to answer her phone, she told me she can't do it because she's scared to go. I called my mom and asked her to pick up my daughter and take her to the funeral. My mom left her work and took her to the funeral. They are there now. I got a call from my wife with her crying because my mom tore her a new one. The gist was my mom called her a bad parent and that it is so fucked up that she couldn't take our child to the funeral of a classmate. She wants to make my mom apologize, and I told her my mom was right. This was something that our daughter needed, and she fucked it up. That she wasn't acting like a parent because of her fear of the dead. All she needed to do was stay through Mass. We got into a huge argument, and she is calling me a huge dick. My mom is apparently getting texts also, and I told her to not let our daughter know that we are fighting, and if she could look after her for the day. She agreed. No, I would not say you are the asshole. I would say your wife is the asshole. She is being incredibly selfish and acting in her own self-interests and making everything about her when this should be about your daughter and how your daughter is handling everything. Your daughter deserved to go to the funeral, and I'm very glad that your mother was able to leave work and bring her there. This is something she definitely needed for closure and to process grief. It is absolutely unfortunate that your daughter had to deal with a death so soon in life. Nobody should have to go through that, but it is good that your mother was able to bring her there so she could go through this and have some closure at least. So, no, you are not the asshole. Am I the asshole for punching my boyfriend in his jewels for tickling me? A couple of days ago, I, 20 female, was in a bad mood. I was laying on my boyfriend's bed, who is 21 male, when he threw himself on top of me and started pinning me down. He said he wasn't meaning to tickle me, but I was indeed being tickled regardless of his hands being on my ribs or not. Anyways, during this time, probably 3 to 5 minutes, I was consistently saying stop and get off, trying everything I could to get him off, like using my arms and my legs, but he simply wasn't budging. At this point, I was extremely overwhelmed, couldn't breathe, and now internally freaking out because he wasn't stopping. I finally saw an opportunity, so I lightly tapped him in the balls. This got him to stop and say, "That's not cool, don't do that," to which I responded, "I will do it again, stop." He then proceeded to pin me down and tickle me again. I saw another opportunity, so I took it, this time hitting him harder. Thankfully, this did get him to stop, but he then got super upset with me for doing that. He's very set that I'm in the wrong, and I am set that I was justified. When we were talking about this later, he said he started doing this because he wanted to see me smile and feel better. Personally, I don't see why that would ever be a solution to make someone feel better. I agree. Considering tickling is essentially a form of torture, I expressed remorse because I never wanted to hurt him, even though I intentionally ball tapped him. I just wanted him to stop. He said he thought everything was okay because I was laughing, but it was an uncomfortable/nervous laugh that I always do when being tickled. He said it isn't ever cool, but especially because I never gave any signs I wasn't having a good time. He said I never told him to get off me, raised my voice, or told him I was serious. But I feel like I shouldn't have to raise my voice for him to know I'm serious, you know? Also, I did say get off. Also confused because how was the first ball tap not a warning? And to clarify, I absolutely agree that hitting somebody in the balls isn't cool in the slightest, but it's not like I did it as a way to play around. I was freaking out, and he wasn't listening. Now, I would say you're completely justified in this. I mean, the first time he did it, excusable. It's a light ball tap. Like, he probably was just trying to mess around, like, roughhouse with you and make you smile or whatever. But the second time after you tapped him in the balls and he said, don't do that, and then he got what, from my inference, is more aggressive about it and pinned you down again. No, I wouldn't say you're the asshole. I would say your boyfriend's kind of the asshole here. And especially since it sounds like you've made it clear multiple times in this story and in past that you don't like being tickled, that he should just listen. So I'd like to know your guys' thoughts. I, 33 male, have been overweight basically my entire life. At my heaviest, I was around 290 pounds. A few years ago, I moved away from my small hometown, and between walking everywhere, being broke enough that I sometimes skipped meals, and eventually getting serious about meal prep and exercise, I've lost about 60 pounds. Lately, I've been putting even more effort into building healthier habits. Over the 4th of July, I went back home and met up with a group of old friends. A few of them had also lost a ton of weight, like 60 to 80 pounds. I was genuinely excited for them, and we started talking about what we had all been doing. I talked about meal prep, counting calories, and exercising. They looked at me like I'd forgotten something. Turns out every single one of them had been using GLP-1 medication. Personally, they're just not something I want to take. I'm worried about long-term effects, the cost, and I'd rather learn sustainable eating and exercise habits myself instead of relying on medication. I referred to that as wanting to do it the natural way. That's where things went sideways. One friend, Mary, 33 female, immediately got defensive. She said calling it the natural way implied people using GLP-1s were cheating or doing it the wrong way. She pointed out that she's still very careful about what she eats, still exercises, and still has to put in the work. I told her I wasn't judging anyone. I was only explaining why I don't want to take them. I said I wanted to understand nutrition and build habits I could maintain without medication. I also said that from my perspective, it sounded like she still had to diet and exercise and spend around $1,200 a month on medication. That did not go over well. I doubt it did. Mary said that not everyone has the luxury of spending hours meal prepping and exercising while working full time and raising kids. I will admit, this is where I become the asshole. I rolled my eyes. The conversation immediately turned against me. Mary then told me that despite all of my hard work, I was still around 250 pounds. I had plateaued, and that my high and mighty attitude clearly wasn't working. She said eventually I'd cave and end up taking GLP-1s too. I told her I wouldn't. The night stayed awkward after that. The next day she texted me saying she talked to her doctor, who agreed with her, and that she could get me my first month of injections for free. I just replied, no thanks. Then another friend, who's admittedly a bit of a pot stirrer, told me Mary joked in the group chat that I was a fat-phobic fat person and that the skinny crew doesn't want you anyway. I never saw screenshots, so I don't know if that part is true. But looking back, I can see how saying the natural way might have come across as judgmental even though I meant it as a personal preference. But I also feel like everyone immediately assumed I was criticizing them when I wasn't. I would say, no, you're not the asshole. I would say you chose one path of going down, betterment of yourself and exercising and losing weight and becoming healthier. There's multiple different ways to go down that road. A lot of people choose your way of doing it naturally and figuring it out on themselves and putting in the work. And some other people like to take medications and take shortcuts. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just you have to deal with the consequences down the roads of medication that you don't quite understand fully, nor does your doctor. You just know that in the short term there's no side effects, but in the long term we don't know. So I wouldn't say you're the asshole. I would just say they feel very insecure about their methods of going about becoming healthier versus yours. Whereas yours is, accomplishment. You did it on your own and you figured it out, which is great on you. And keep at it, keep losing the weight, keep exercising, and keep meal prepping. I would like to hear you guys' thoughts. Am I the asshole for stealing a $700 bourbon bottle from my brother-in-law? So in my family, a few of us drink/collect bourbon. Mainly me, my brother-in-law, and my dad. Some bottles are extremely rare, expensive, and hard to find, so collectors will line up at stores or attend special events hoping to get one. Last Thanksgiving, a liquor store near my sister and brother-in-law was holding an event with a large number of rare bourbons. Everyone who arrived at 8 a.m. received a number, and numbers were randomly called throughout the morning. When called, you could buy one available bottle at MSRP. Everyone would eventually be called, but earlier numbers had better choices. My brother-in-law was especially excited because he has a huge bourbon collection but has never been able to find a bottle of Pappy. This is kind of like the holy grail of bourbons that all collectors, myself included, would die to find a bottle at this price. I was about 50-50 on going because I also collect bourbon and would kill for a bottle of Pappy, but I had not fully committed because it was Thanksgiving morning and we had a lot going on at home. At last minute, my brother-in-law had to work Thanksgiving morning. He asked my sister, who does not care about bourbon, to go in his place and hopefully get the Pappy. She asked me to come so she would not have to attend this whole bourbon circus alone. Since I had already considered going and wanted a chance at a cool bottle for my collection, I went with her. We also invited my dad because he too would kill for his own bottle of Pappy, but thought the whole thing sounded weird and stayed home. My sister and I received numbers 54 and 55. My number was called out, 15 people in, and I bought the bottle of Pappy for around $100. First of all, what a steal. Just gotta say, that's insane. But anyways, it is nearly impossible to find near us and usually sells for $700 plus. My sister was called much later after the Pappy was gone and settled for a bottle of E.H. Taylor, which is good but not nearly as rare or expensive. I was thrilled. Literally the bottle of a lifetime I never thought I would get. However, when I get home, my brother-in-law immediately said, "That is my bourbon." He believes I went solely as his stand-in, so the Pappy should belong to him. He says I stole the bottle he would have gotten if he had been there to attend. I disagree. I went because I drink and collect bourbon and wanted a bottle for myself. I never agreed to give him anything I bought. I knew my sister was there specifically for him, but I considered myself an independent participant who was also keeping her company. I could understand his argument if my sister had brought my mom, who could not care less about bourbon, and she happened to get the Pappy. Then she would clearly have been there as his stand-in, but that is not my situation. My brother-in-law refers to it as his Pappy and brings up Pappygate whenever possible. So Reddit, am I the asshole? I genuinely did not realize he believed I was attending on his behalf. In his mind, I schemed him out of a bottle he has wanted for years to complete his collection. Disclaimer. This argument is mostly in good fun. I love my sister and my brother-in-law. I would just like to settle it so I can stop hearing about Pappygate, but when I open this bottle, it will 100% be with him present for the first tasting. No, I would not say you're the asshole. I don't get how he doesn't understand you also collect bourbon, and same as your dad, as he does too. Like, how does he not understand that you went there because you wanted your own bottle? Just because he was unable to go there and you got the bottle and his wife/your sister didn't, does not automatically mean that the bottle you got is his. You never told him anything. He never asked you anything. He never asked you to, if he got the bottle first, could he buy it from you? And you never made an arrangement like that. So I would say, no, you're not the asshole. I would say he's kind of blowing stuff out of proportion, and calling it Pappygate is funny, I would say once or twice every once in a while, but from what it sounds like, if he's consistently bringing it up and is salty about it, I wouldn't say you're the asshole. I would say he's kind of the asshole for assuming it's his bottle when you bought it and had your own ticket and were thinking about going either way. So no, I don't think you're the asshole. I'd like to hear you guys' thoughts. I would just like to say thank you to each and every one of you that stayed to this point in the video and listened to each of the stories that I read out today. This is the first video on the channel and the first video of this series. I plan to do many more of these. I want to have an upload schedule of every Sunday for the long form, and throughout the week uploading some short content of either the long form videos that I make or of individual stories I feel like would serve better as a YouTube short. But again, thank you to each and every one of you that has watched this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe down below. You have no idea how much this means to me, but I hope you have a great rest of your day. Goodbye.